Hello friends and happy Tuesday. Today we are going to be doing another installment of MK Audiobook Club. We are going to be talking about Landline by Rainbow Rowell, narrated by Rebecca Lowman, which I listened to recently, although I should have made this video like 2 weeks ago, but I've been a little crazy and busy, so it's coming a little late. But I listened to it when I was flying home for Christmas, which was such an appropriate time to be listening to this book since it takes place at Christmas and is all about traveling. This is the second book I've read by Rainbow. I read Fangirl last year when I was playing Kath in Yulene's adaptation of a scene from Fangirl, which you can check out here if you haven't. And I really enjoyed that a lot. I'd really like to read Eleanor and Park, but I wasn't aware that she wrote adult books as well as young adult books. I expected this to be another young adult book, and clearly it's not, because the main characters are in their 30s, which is not a bad thing at all. I really enjoyed kind of a whole different perspective, and I think Rainbow, I think she does a very good job writing you know, across all these different ages. I found things to relate to in both books. This is totally off topic, but who loved the Kath and Levi cameos? Not even cameos, they were a big part. I thought that they were just like in the background of some scene, but they were a really big part of Landline, which was really fun. Oh, spoilers ahead. I think she's made it clear that Kath and Levi are in the book, so that's not really a spoiler, but if you haven't read Landline, go do it and then come back and watch this video. I know that she didn't want to come out and say that that was them, but I felt like it was a little weird that Georgie was riding in the car with them and never once was like, hey, what's your name? Or that they did that, vice versa. I mean, Kath gave her shoes and she didn't even ask for her name. It was a really interesting read to me, just personally, because of things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and just the place that I'm at in my life. It's kind of a book about you know, marriage that is going through some difficult things, and that is really thought-provoking, I think, for I don't know how it would be if I were reading this 10 years ago, but now it's really interesting to me. And my parents divorced when I was little, so it's kind of always been a thing I think about, like, my whole life, that I've been very highly, acutely aware of, that marriages are difficult and often don't work. I didn't really find myself rooting for Neil at first. It wasn't until we kind of, like, got to know the younger Neil that I really, like, I don't know, I kind of wasn't on his side for a while. Not that I was on Team Seth or anything, although I really was confused at first. I was like, are we gonna be like, what's happening? I knew that something was going on with Seth and like that was gonna lead somewhere, but I was very confused about like which direction the book was going, which is great. I mean, good job, Rainbow. But it really did kind of take me a while to warm up to Neil, and maybe that's just because it was from Georgie's perspective and she was frustrated with him the whole time. I think the whole setup of, you know, the fantasy part of the book, completely surprised me. This book was like just very surprising to me in a lot of ways, which was really enjoyable. B was so interesting. Again, like, this was kind of the first time that I've come across these, like, anything like this in, I mean, not the theme of like revisiting the past and such, but I just thought she did it in such a fresh, different way, that it was really exciting to listen to and to just see where it went. I haven't ever read anything like that before and was totally blindsided by that. Even though the name of the book is Landline, I was like, wait, I didn't expect it to be a magic landline, what? Which was really cool. And of course, like, Georgie is a writer and lives in Los Angeles, and I related to that quite a bit. I'm not a writer, but like just the whole nature of the business that she explores in the book. I mean, it does truly take over people's lives. That's not wrong. And I certainly understand like that sort of idea of the stress of what you do having an effect on your personal relationships. I really did enjoy the book. It was, like I said, just so totally, completely different from what I expected, but by the end I did end up rooting for Neil, and just happy that Georgie could kind of come to a place of peace about the whole thing. Although I do, not that I don't feel bad for Seth, but I feel bad for their project, I guess. I was like, oh wait, I want you to still be able to make this project happen. You've gone through so much stress and anxiety over it. come on. So in my head canon, they get back to LA and then everything goes great and their show is a huge hit and everything is wonderful for them. I really found Georgie a very relatable character. I like that about Rainbow's characters. I don't know, I just like being inside their heads and I think they're really interesting. And I enjoyed her whole family dynamic as well. And all that brings us to Rebecca Lowman's narration of it. Well, I first had tweeted about this and Rainbow responded to me and said how great she was, how great Rebecca Lowman was. And she was indeed so good. And she's done a bajillion audiobooks and some really like big ones too. She's done Eleanor and Park as well, and Fangirl, and a Gillian Flynn novel I saw on there as well. So she's like a pro. It was such a contrast to listening to Daniel in the last one because he was having to do such charactery voices, whereas Rebecca really didn't ever have to do that. The changes that she put onto her voice were so subtle, but they managed to carry every character through. Like, hearing Neil by the end of the book sounded like a guy, like it sounded like Neil. To me, you know, you kind of forget that you're listening to a woman. I really found it interesting how slight the changes she would make to her voices were for each of the characters, but they all worked so well. Even the smaller characters like Scotty and like the other guys in the office, I still felt very like they came alive for me in her reading, and that was really cool. And she is, I don't know, she's got like a very nice, soothing voice. So yeah, it was a very enjoyable edition of Audiobook Club. I want to know what your thoughts were. Did you enjoy Rebecca's reading? What did you think about Neil? Did you find him swoon-worthy? It took me a while to get swoony over Neil, but by the end I really enjoyed it. Did you think that the themes were applicable to you depending on what stage of your life you're in right now, or did you find it a little boring? I don't know. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts if you participated or if you just read Landline at some point in your life since it's been out. So I have a question for you, lovely people. I feel like the participation for Audiobook Club has like very much dropped off since the first few installments, and I'm kind of trying to decide whether or not I want to continue with it. Obviously later this year there will be a Lydia Bennett book, and I would love to discuss that with you all, but that's not going to be for another 6 months at least. And so I'm kind of trying to decide what to do with Audiobook Club. The next book that we could discuss is Amy Poehler's book, Yes Please, which I listened to on the way to Sundance, and I highly recommend. I mean, I love Amy Poehler. She's like one of my top 5 female idols. So whether or not we do it for this, I definitely recommend you read her book, and I recommend that you listen to the audiobook because she narrates it and brings in a lot of other people. And I think the experience of listening to it probably far outweighs reading it, just because you get to hear her read it to you, and she makes jokes, and Seth Meyers is in it, and Patrick Stewart is in it, and the other fellow who created Parks and Rec comes in, and they talk about Parks and Rec, which was my favorite chapter because I love that show so much. So anyway, all that to say, you should absolutely listen to Yes Please by Amy Poehler. Do you want to discuss it for Audiobook Club? If you still enjoy participating, please let me know, speak up, and let me know if we should keep it going or if we should give it a little break for now. As always, you can get Yes Please or any other audiobook for free at audibletrial.com/mksmiles. That is EMKAYSMILES, which you should do because audiobooks are really cool, and I've really found that I enjoy listening to them as I'm driving around Los Angeles and supporting the artists both that write them and that read them. Thank you so much for participating and for watching. Hope you have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you next time.